Um,
Sean, I want to circle back to you, but I have to turn now to Samet, and I would just add, Sean, to what you're saying in terms of the power hunger, in that essentially Prime Minister Erdogan is now running to change the constitution to allow him now to run for the position of president, to empower that role, and which would enable him to remain in power until 2022.
which
Of
is probably
course,
not going to happen now.
it's not going to happen
That's
now, and we
probably
can we can we can
really
make a
hard to see
safe
that happening
bet.
now.
You can hear it here on Take Action News first that one of the results of this revolution, of this wave of protests, is probably that Prime Minister Erdogan will finish out his term as prime minister and not continue on to change the constitution, allow himself to become president. I should note that the deputy prime minister, in particular after the news of the death of Abdullah Jomart, the deputy prime minister who is now serving who is now acting prime minister because Prime Minister Erdogan has continued a 4-day trip that he had planned to the Maghreb, to Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. The deputy prime minister and acting prime minister Bulent Arinc said that the crackdown is wrong and unjust. Some people don't believe that that is ingenuous coming from such a high-ranking government official. And of course, the president, however, who has apparently a less powerful position than the prime minister, Abdullah Gül, has said that democracy is not just about elections. In other words, we need to listen to people, even if we won the majority of the vote. We need to listen to the minority and people that are dissenting, and what they have to say. And the United States government has called on Turkey to not violently repress peaceful protests. And obviously, the United States, though, counts on Turkey as a major ally in Middle Eastern affairs. So, it's obviously very interesting that Prime Minister Erdogan at this point is out of the country at a moment when the country is blazing with protests. At this point, many of them involved in destroying property, though that did not start out that way. It was in response to police, and the media has not been covering this adequately, and so social media has filled that role. We now know that the hashtag Dear and Gezi Park has been tweeted 1.8 million times as of yesterday, 85% of them from the country of Turkey. That has been crucial, and in fact, that's why Prime Minister Erdogan has called social media a menace. Samet Atasoy is a writer and translator and a blogger for Kaos GL, that's KAOSGL.com, a gay and lesbian Turkish blog and website, living in Ankara. Samet, you're living in the capital right now. Are people shocked that the Prime Minister continued his trip to North Africa?
It's not really shocking. I think it's an extension. I mean, I'm not personally shocked because it's an extension of how he ignored the situation. The plans of the trip was already done long before the protests became serious, and his position towards the protests didn't change all throughout that time. He always made remarks about, and that actually added to the protests themselves. He uh, he personally attacked the people who did the protests with calling them names, calling them looters and whatnot. And this drew more people to do this. But the most interesting part in this is that this is unique because people finally found a way to make the news themselves. This, I think, Tayyip Erdogan represented so much of the government, almost all the government, and simply because of that reason, all the success, all the good things that happened in the country was about him and him only, and his party naturally. Whenever he promoted the things that happened in the country that were good, all the trees that they planted, all the new buildings that they built, it was all about AK Party and how they succeeded in doing this. There wasn't even a mention of the people most of the time, and people became a passive participant in a fastly moving train, and like a train of like capitalist growth. And most people, of course, were happy to be a part of it because there were more jobs and more places to be. There was more, I guess, resources to be had by the people, but it didn't represent anything about the people. And I can see this. I mean, this relates to environment directly because, and long before any of this happened, there were many parties called, for example, Refah Partisi. These people, the people who you might call conservatives, they were like recycled in these parties. They were banned. They came back, and kept cropping up as they formed new parties. And AK Party was the first one who was able to use, I think, somewhat an American way of promoting their party
Well,
with money.
it certainly reminds us of the Republican Party, right? A combination of religion and capitalism and neoliberal philosophy. I mean, it's kind of Republican
Yeah,
and the American
exactly. I mean,
model.
they also had so much support from many people, but they employed the kind of uh, promotion that you wouldn't be able to think of at that time. I think by other parties, it was most of the parties at that time were classic Turkish parties that were somewhat crippled. They were classics. They were just there all the time, and you would see them coming back with different names, but they were always the same. But AK Party represented something new and something more vibrant and energetic and like development and okay, justice doesn't really sound exactly about progress, but it's there. I mean, it meant something good to the people. And when they took things up, they made it their own. And whenever they built something, it was their success and their style. They put something in there that made it theirs. And I don't think there is a division between the people and the government. There is a division between uh, the idea that has been played out so many times over the past, I don't know, 80 years, and another group of people who had another idea, and they've been like brewing on the side for so long. And the last 10 years, AK Party, I think there's always somewhat of a unfinished business in Turkey by one group or the other. Conservatives, progressives, Kemalists. I mean, there is always an unfinished business, and this plays out in the parliament all the time. They're saying you did that, and I think it's classic for politics because it's really a serious problem in terms of
So
democracy in
there's
Turkey.
kind of a vicious cycle at play in which one side is constantly retaliating for the other side.